Go ahead. Turn it up. It's the Record Machine Show with your host, Jimmy Howe.
Papa's drinking Percy's brandy and cream. Sisters marching with the red baton, homecoming team. Ma chews the fat by the news, and Ray's just singing the blues. On radio K105, here come old Dandy, just a trace in the block. He's selling old gold teeth, port wine, shallots, and Birkenstocks. He's got a girl by the bay that's in the family way. Big trouble in a little town. I heard it said, though I have never been sure. The man that sells the panic, selling the cure, and what's more, he'll throw his tie around the door. And I learned just what that's for. On Firebird Avenue, on Firebird Avenue, on Firebird Avenue. Billy's Diner, they serve breakfast all day. Pretty checkout girls to melt or steal your heart away. What's been eating your butt? I'd cut a rug if I could. There's nothing bad about nothing good. Belle has the corner while it's all understood. We're hand in glove around the old neighborhood. Oh my, don't you be talking that jive when it's 4:45 on Firebird Avenue, on Firebird Avenue, on Firebird Avenue.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome singer-songwriter Colm Gavin. How you doing, Colm?
I'm doing good, James. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Now, I know you're from Ireland, but what part are you from?
So I'm born and raised in Dublin, Ireland, and that's where I'm talking to you from as we speak.
Oh, wow. Very cool. What's the music scene like there in Dublin?
It's pretty varied. There's a thriving traditional Irish music scene at the moment, and the songwriter scene is ever burgeoning. I always notice every few years there's a number of different facilities, particularly in the suburbs. So where I live in Clondalkin and a neighbouring suburb, Tala, there's great facilities like Rua Red and Sub Sounds that nurture up-and-coming artists and songwriters and of all genres and all descriptions. So it could be blues, it could be rock, reggae, jazz, all sorts. So there's always something going on in any manner of genres at any time.
Now tell me about your musical background. When did you first get involved in music?
Yeah, in a lot of ways it was out of necessity more than anything else. When I was about 11 or 12, and my mother said to me, you need to take up some sort of extracurricular thing. It doesn't matter if it's swimming, football, whatever. And I stumbled upon music because when I was in primary school, there was a teacher, Fiona, and after class, she would take a handful of students for music lessons, so piano and guitar. And I just took it up because there was a girl that I liked, and I thought, well, if I learned to play the guitar, that might be an in of some description.
Right.
It wasn't, but I stuck with it, and then ultimately went to the Clondalkin School of Music, which was kind of an academy for music, ran by the brilliant Peter Stanton. And I always described him as kind of a Renaissance figure because he looked like a cross between Burt Reynolds and a character that Roald Dahl would have written. And he taught everything from piano to guitar, mainly piano and guitar, but he really went into depth with music theory. And he used to have Saturday morning music classes. And it could be about 10 to 20 of us in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And we would decompose pieces by the Beatles. We would take contemporary, it could be anything from a piece of classical music to Leonard Skinner to Eric Clapton, Elton John, Little Feat, Lowell George. And he would play a piece of music and he'd say, okay, what key is it in? Is there any modal interchange? Do they modulate? What's the tempo? All that kind of thing. And to begin with, it was like it was another language completely, and then eventually became a second language. And that began my love affair with music, but particularly music theory.
Now, I believe every band or artist is influenced by someone. Who are some of your musical influences?
Some of the names that I mentioned, Elton John would be a big one. Randy Newman. A lot of the great American songwriters of the late 60s, early 70s, Jim Croce, James Taylor, Bob Dylan. But my influences go right back to the Great American Songbook, Jerome Kern, Irving Berlin, George and Ira Gershwin, Cole Porter. Mm-hmm. Because really the roots of all that music, all the stuff I'm talking about from the mid-70s and 60s, it has its roots there. It has its roots in jazz, it has its roots in classical. And because I studied a lot of these guys, that it still has a hold on the music that influences me today, which is the same as it's always been, really.
Mm-hmm. Now, was Neil Sedaka an influence for you?
Yeah, like big time.
Because I hear a little bit of that in your music. I mean, I'm not saying you sound like him, but I don't know. You just have like that vibe to me. A little bit of Neil Sedaka in there.
Do you know, James, when I was recording my first album, A Voice for the Urban Darlings, a lot of the songs have like an shala walla walla or a shalala through on a big early Neil Sedaka kick. Because if you listen to anything from Breaking Up Is Hard to Do to Oh Carol, there's all those kind of 3-stack vocal harmony shalalas and that kind of thing. And yeah, his music would be a big influence. No, there's no doubt about it.
What about Dean Friedman?
Oh, geez, yeah. Like, and you know, it's funny. In the past year or two, I've actually got to work closely with Dean and support him on his Irish tour dates.
Wow. And
for me, he's as real as it gets, because when I think of the Great American Songbook, he's there. Mm-hmm. You know, Lydia, Lucky Stars, Ariel, Company, anything off Rumple's Romeo, and even the stuff he's doing at the moment, like anything from American Lullaby. It's just timeless. And we would have a lot of the same influences. And in some cases, some people have said our vocal styles are quite similar as well, which is a huge compliment to me. But yeah, I love Dean's stuff. Yeah,
I remember you had mentioned to me that you had heard the interview that I did with him. He was pretty cool when he was on the show. I really enjoyed having him on.
Yeah, he's, for somebody who's such a consummate professional, he's also a real dude as well. Like, he's very easy to talk to. There's no airs and graces. Not in the least bit pretentious. He's a great guy.
Cool. Now, your current release, the 1992 tapes, can you talk about that a little bit?
The 1992 tapes, again, was something, the way it was recorded and the format within which it was made, again, kind of came out of necessity. So it was made over the course of one day, James, in April of 2021. And it was recorded in Thornton Piano's showrooms in Finglas in Dublin. And it was engineered by Brian O'Dwyer and Alan Thornton of the Thornton Piano family. And it was 5 songs, all original songs. And I wanted to capture how songs typically come to life for me, which is at the piano, working out a verse or chorus sequence and developing it. Now, I don't do any developing on the record, but they're in their most embryonic form, the way they were released, so much to the point where there's a lot of, there's mistakes and there's blunders and stuff like that. But I wanted to keep it in its most embryonic and raw state. And that worked quite well, because at the time, it was very difficult to book studio sessions for musicians, because because of the COVID regulations, you couldn't have more than one musician in a studio booth at one time. So it worked out kind of well. But yeah, it's 5 original songs. They all have kind of a different narrative. I don't think there's a theme running through it or anything like that. But yeah, I'm really proud of it. It's the longest song on it, which is Your Little Corner of the Moon, actually reached number 2 in the Japanese single charts, which I will never get my head around stuff like that. But it's been lovely.
That's awesome. Now, this podcast is going to feature 2 of your tracks. One of my favorite on in there is On Firebird Avenue, and the song you just spoke about, Your Little Corner of the Moon. What's the story behind those two songs?
Well, on Firebird Avenue, where I grew up, I used to call my housing estate the Horseshoe, because it's kind of shaped like a horseshoe. And in it, it was just rich with characters of all descriptions. People who were from kinesiologists to football coaches and everything in between, Spanish teachers. It was rife with characters. And the first time I went to New York, and the first great degree of time I spent in Manhattan, I met a lot of these characters, which in my head paired up with the ones that I grew up with, which for me there was a light bulb flash moment that all around the world, in every town and in every city, they have these characters. And so Firebird Avenue is a fictitious avenue to the best of my knowledge. I mean, I did a little bit of research. I think there is a Firebird Avenue somewhere in California, but to me, this on Firebird Avenue was a snapshot moment of walking down an avenue in mid-1950s New York and the different characters you meet. So here comes Dandy tracing the block, selling old gold teeth, port wine, shallots and Birkenstocks. You know, we had characters like that who would pull up in ice cream vans and sold everything from ice cream to paint to, you know, a chest of drawers, a secondhand record player, cologne, you know. So
right.
It's just about characters of that description, and there's no real story to it. It's just a snapshot. You know, Ray Charles music playing up in a windowsill, an argument on the street corner, a breakup on one corner and makeup on another. But it's all happening at 4:45 on Firebird Avenue. That's pretty much it, you know.
And the other song?
Your Little Corner of the Moon, I used to introduce on stage as a series of disappointments, and all of which autobiographical, but I won't tell you in what order. But I think everyone's been there. You know, like there's the initial dalliance, like if there's 7 wonders in this world and you must be the 8th, you know, cheesy pickup lines. Like, how much does a polar bear weigh? Enough to break the ice. That kind of thing. It reads sort of like a play-by-play dialogue, and then it starts to internalize a little bit as the song goes on. So the second person disappears. It's no longer a dialogue, it's a monologue where he's kind of saying to himself, it's only 3 weeks since she's left, but there's a cold chill in the air. And there's not a trace of her on Main Street, but I still see her everywhere. I think everybody's been through that, you know, when you go through a breakup and you feel like in every shop display window or every car that passes you by, you think you see them, and it's just your imagination playing tricks on you. That's probably the sentiment behind that one too.
Cool. Now, your EP, the 1992 tapes, it reached number 1 on the Irish singer-songwriter charts, number 4 on the pop charts, number 56, Billboard 100 in the USA, and 81 on the Italian pop charts. What's it like reading and hearing that your music is reaching so many countries and it's charting, even some in the top 10? Yeah,
even hearing you say that doesn't really register, because for me, especially evenings, like as I'm talking to you now, I'm looking out the window and the sun is kind of dipping, and it reminds me of when I used to attend music lessons, and you'd be just, you know, grasping to the last breaches of sunlight in an evening and thinking, how much more time can you spend out with your friends and stuff. And I remember so vividly what it was like to be learning the instrument in the first place. So to go from that headspace to hearing the likes of what you just said is still kind of a fever dream. But for me, James, I just tried to stay as close to trying to write good songs and to stay connected to my audience, however great or small it might be. So everything else in between is just a real honor.
The hard work is paying off, obviously.
Well,
right?
I think, you hope, but at the same time, you never want to get to the point where you rest too much on your laurels. It can all drift away from you very quickly. So I just try to stay focused and keep up the schedule as well, you know.
Yeah, I love every song on the EP, but like I said, my favorite one is Firebird Avenue. But how do you approach songwriting? What's your creative process like?
So I try to keep a 5-day week schedule. So I'll get up sometimes early, sometimes not so early, but I'll park myself in front of the piano, and I usually stick something on, either the radio or a playlist or something, to kind of not reach for an idea, but just to kind of listen to maybe some country stuff, maybe some Duke Ellington, Ornette Coleman, maybe some Dean Friedman, and maybe something might kick off an idea. And so then I start to brainstorm. Could be titles, one-liners, verse ideas, noodle at the piano a bit, maybe figure out a melody. And somewhere in the mess of all that, it's kind of like trying to dial out the static on a radio. And eventually you hear a little bit of a melody, you hear a structure, and you start to find out where an idea could go. And if I get a good day, maybe I'll finish the song, maybe I'll finish two, but I usually try to stick at it for about 4 hours.
Now, songwriter Paul Williams said, "Songs this beautiful deserve to be heard. Your heart is showing." How does it make you feel when a guy like Paul Williams, who's written songs for Cher, Barbra Streisand, even the Carpenters, say a quote like that about your music?
Yeah, again, it's musicians like that level of generosity, that level of giving to younger artists is something. It goes back to what I said about Dean Friedman. It takes a hugely generous artist to give it a statement like that, to say something, because they don't have to. Someone like Paul Williams has made his bread. He doesn't need to. He could just stop. He could just go off the grid and not connect with it anymore. And yet he's someone who still reaches out to young artists like myself and lends his support and a kind word and an ear when it's needed. And maybe some advice, which he has. Only recently I spoke to Paul a few days ago. He gave me some advice with regards to a piece of music I was working on. And he always seems to know the right thing to say. So I'm very lucky to have somebody like him in my life, period. He's just a wonderful person.
Sounds like it. Now, are you working on any new music? And if so, when can we expect?
Yeah, well, I don't think I've said this anywhere yet. I'll have a new album out this year. And it's called Digging the Idle Flower. And it's got all new material that hasn't appeared on anything else yet. I'm working with some brilliant people. It's in its very embryonic stages now, but hopefully maybe the next time we talk, maybe you might maybe play a song or two from the record, but I'm really excited about it. So I'm hoping to have it out before October of this year anyway.
Nice. Now, when you're not writing and performing music, what do you like to do outside of music? Any hobbies or interests?
Well, music, for me, while it's all that I do, it's not something that I ever tire of. So if I'm out having a drink with a friend, it doesn't bother me if the subject matter is exclusively songwriting or if it's about a record that one of us has heard or a new single by somebody or whatever. But I like to go to concerts as well, James. Like, since we've come out of COVID, it was a joy that was kind of taken from so many of us to just walk down to your local pub or venue and hear great music. And I'm very lucky. In Clondalkin, where I live, there's a brilliant venue called Oris Cronan, and from Thursday to Sunday you can hear music of all descriptions: trad, blues, folk music. There's one particularly great group that I absolutely love their music, Wicker Light. And Wicker Light, they're it would be overly simplistic to say that they're a traditional group, but they do have traditional roots. But their energy live, it could be similarly described as like punk energy, and they're just incredible. Two pals of mine, Mike Mansfield and Luke Curvin, are in Wicker Light, and if you find that they're playing in your town, I'd highly suggest going to see them because they're just incredible.
I'll have to check them out. Maybe I'll ask them to come on the program.
Well, it would be so worthwhile because they're just incredible.
Now, what is it about music that makes you feel passionate?
I suppose from the time that I started to study with my mentor Peter Stanton, was his love for it that was infectious to me, because we'd be listening to a piece like You're a Lady by Peter Skellern or Father and Son by Cat Stevens, and the way he would get into the description, I remember very vividly. I was about 15 years of age and he was deconstructing Two of Us by the Beatles, and there's a modulation from G major to B flat, and to the untrained ear, it's very drastic, but the way he explained to me how it was done, that he's moving to the flattened third and here's how he gets back. I just remember it was one of the first times it really made sense to me what modulation was and how songwriting and the structure of songwriting really works. And from that moment on, every time I'd encounter a new piece of music, things like that surprise and delight all the time. So that love affair with music has never ceased since. Nice.
Now, if you could do a duet or a collaboration with any artist, who would it be and why?
Oh, there's a few. I'd love to collaborate with Dean Friedman. I think that'd be incredible. I've said on a few podcasts before, I'd love to collaborate with Elton John. There's so many of my contemporaries that that I would love to work with. People like Amy Nestins, Ciara Dalton, Lara, they're all brilliant songwriters and performers. Claudia Buckley, one of the greatest country singers that we have in Ireland, who I've had the great fortune of actually co-writing with. There's so many, James, but I think that the thrill of just engaging with another artist's perspective is something that's always really exciting too. So, obviously there's pipe dream ones like Ian Friedman's and Elton John's and Bob Dylan's and stuff like that. But just the art of collaboration is fun in and of itself.
Nice. Now, do you have a website you'd like to promote?
I suppose the two easiest places to find me are Facebook, so Colm Gavin Music on Facebook, and Colm Gavin on Instagram. And I have a verified account on Instagram, so it's me and not the Colm Gavin hidden in a bunker somewhere pretending to be me, Nice.
Now, is there anything you'd like to mention that we didn't talk about today?
Well, first, I'd just like to thank you in particular for having me on as a guest. It's been great to talk to you. I love the work that you do, and it's always good to chat. But for anybody who'll be in Ireland this summer, I've got a lot of dates around the country. One particular show I'm doing on the 2nd of July is in the National Stadium. That's actually a 2,000-seater. I'm the special guest of a Philippine musician and comedian, Wacky Jure, and that's a show I'm really looking forward to. I'm doing my own show at the Showbio Festival on the 8th of July. Tickets for that become available very soon. So again, if you just keep on my social media, both Facebook and Instagram, you'll see all these gig dates and ticket sale times when they come to light.
Awesome. Well, Colm, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really dig this EP. I think it's great, and I'm looking forward to hearing the new album when it comes out. And I want to stay in touch with you because when that album comes out, I'd love to have you back on the show again, if that's okay.
Oh, it'd be my absolute pleasure. So thank you so much.
All right, man. Well, let's stay in touch. And like I said, when that comes out, let's schedule a time and a day and we'll have you back on. All right.
That'd be brilliant. Thank you so much.
All right, Colm. You have a great day. All right.
Appreciate it. You too.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There are 7 wonders in this world, then you must be the 8th. She said I only ordered rice, now it seems there's cheese here on my plate. I said I guess that's not the kind of thing that you'd hear on a first date, but if I didn't say it now, I never will. She had the kind of eyes that poets from Alaska write about, that could freeze you with one glance, but that you'd burn inside without. And as her feet would glide down Main Street, all the boys would scream and shout. I hope there's someone out there screaming for her still. And all the girls eat mashed potatoes as I swallow humble pie. Problem shared is a problem still, I don't need to tell you why. Her cage door's standing open, but she won't rest until she flies to her little corner of the moon. It was late September, I recall. There was gold beneath our feet. By circumstance I learned to dance in her arms out in the street. And the fragrance of her hair gave off the taste of something sweet. I'd have stayed right there forever if I could. She said that love is like a lottery as the red lights fade to blue. I don't know what it is I'm searching for, but tonight perhaps it's you. Still I don't want the kind of heart that sticks to my shirt sleeves like glue. And then she kissed me like she thought I understood. Let all the girls eat mashed potatoes as I swallow humble pie. Problem shared is a problem still, I don't need to tell you why. Her the cage door standing open, but she won't rest until she flies to her little corner of the moon. I wanted to say from the time we started, I'm not only here till the rain has parted. I'll always be true and I'm open-hearted, and it's open just for you and everything you do. If you can do that too. Oh, but she just sighed and said, think of us as passing ships that were never meant to sail. There's such a high price for the quiet life, and my freedom's not for sale. I'm like a wild wind that can't reduce itself to a passing summer gale. If this were any other time, for you I would. It's only 3 weeks since she left, but there's a cold chill in the air. There's not a trace of her on Main Street, but I still see her everywhere. And Mama told me she'll come back, son, if you just act like you don't care. Still I know this time goodbye meant bye for good. And all the girls eating mashed potatoes as I swallow humble pie. A problem shared is a problem still, I don't need to tell you why. But every night it seems in my wildest dreams, it is always she and I, in her little corner of the moon. In her little corner of the moon.
The Record Machine Show is a weekly radio podcast produced by Jimmy Howell Productions. All rights reserved. For information regarding distribution or adding this podcast to your website, please visit our contact page at therecordmachineshow.com to submit your request. Thanks for listening. See you next time on The Record Machine Show.
The Record Machine Show.